you're new to pool and practicing the basics, or a more experienced player performing drills to improve your shot making and positional play, the Drill Partner is perfect for you.
Oh boy, Mike.
You again.
Oh boy. Dun, 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 dun. I gotta tell you, Mike, that was probably
Go Joshua.
That was. I got to give him some props because that was a pretty cool little teaser. Even though we knew it was going to be Josh, but like just that like cold-blooded, like Mosconi Cup, Fade to Black with the filler song on there, that was the way to do it for sure. So I got to give him some love there. Even though they'll say that all I do is talk shit, which I do most time, but you gotta give them some credit when it's due. You doing all right, buddy?
Yep, everything's good. Everything's good.
I wanted to give some love to Collins. He's probably watching, although he never watches the show. But this time he's huddled up in a hospital room out there in California because he's somebody's appendicitis or like his I don't know, maybe he's just having like a heavy month. I don't know, something's going on. So
hernia, appendicitis, something.
Yeah, something's going on. So. But anyway, buddy, if you're watching, we love you, or I love you anyway, and hopefully you get out of there sooner than later.
I'm not going on record with that.
Yeah, listen, he's tough to fade, but he's kind of like he's like the little brother I never wanted. You know what I mean? So what are you gonna do?
Yeah, right.
Anyhow, if you guys are just tuning in, if you haven't checked on Facebook, some announcements more today over the last couple of days. Mike, we talked shit about them taking so long to announce Pius, which they did, but luckily they finally did, and they announced a few other players as well.
Yeah, they did. Well, Pius, it was just, he was in, right? It was points. There was no, it was just a matter of when were they going to actually admit it. But the two today, at least had a little bit of speculation, on will they or won't they, announcing Shane and then Josh. That's, those are two huge names that they don't want to have that event without. They went without Joshy last year. And this year it was really kind of, we were kind of, we didn't know one way or the other after Hanoi when Shane didn't show up to Hanoi and Josh didn't show up to Hanoi. We knew that was going to take them both off of Reyes Cup, but we didn't know what kind of fallout there'd be for Mosconi Cup. So, obviously there was no fallout. I mean, they didn't play Hanoi. There were a lot of players really big out into it who missed several tournaments this year. So they obviously didn't hold it against them. He won one of their, open events this year. Josh did. So, it's good to see that he's back in it. I mean, we all want Josh in Mosconi Cup. So it's one of the reasons we watch. He's back in there. It raises questions about the dynamic with Europe. I'm sure that they'll be fine, but it's going to take a little bit of, group hugging and,
Well, I think it's more of
whatever.
There's nobody really there that like aired him out or like didn't stand up for him except for Jason, really. You know what I mean? So like,
I had always kind of been under the impression that there was a little bit of angst there with Jason, that there was also a little bit there with Moritz.
Why do you say that in terms of Moritz, Mike? Because that's I'm turn off this fan.
Just stuff that I'd heard over the transom, over time. But I asked Moritz. He said we'll be fine. So he's ready to go. And Jason, I'm sure and Josh. Jason's a captain playing the captain's role, so he's going to figure it out. We'll see how lovey-dovey they all are, but I mean, can they operate as a team for sure? Whether they, whether they all know each other or not, you go out there. I mean, there have been plenty of sports teams out there that had conflicting personalities, but when they get on the field playing for the same goal, they can get the job done. So you would expect
it's so much better when you got, one of the best to ever ever put on the blue and the yellow. You know what I mean? And so just from like a dependability standpoint, I mean, look, sports will be whatever it'll be, but like you would be more than comfortable with the fact knowing that no matter what. So, um, but the Moritz one kind of comes as a bit of a surprise. The thing with him though is that although he's had individual success, like fall in line, kid. You know what I mean? Like you're probably your fourth man back at best. You know what I mean? So and so you just kind of have to like respect the hierarchy. And the good thing with Josh is that you know his his performance over the years speaks for itself. Now, whether or not he's coming in hitting on all cylinders this year is a different conversation. But I think like you're gonna feel pretty good knowing even if I'm playing by myself, right? Like to me, it kind of takes the pressure off of these rookies, knowing
Yeah,
that
he takes weight off the whole team. He
yeah,
takes weight off
yeah,
the whole team, just knowing that every a couple of times every day he's going to be trotting out there with his cue, and you're going to feel a lot better about watching. So no doubt about it.
yeah, for sure. And kudos to them for like, listen, I'm sure it was like me and you talked at length about whether or not Shane and Filler would be announced. I'm sure there was a lot of discussion. I'm sure there was a lot of going back and forth on weighing it out. And I'm glad that they went down this road. So for both those guys because they were both in that same boat. You know what I mean? And I like guys who stand up for themselves. And I know we gave Josh a lot of shit, last year especially. But you know what? He did what was best for him. He took the worst of it by far on social media. Took the worst of it by far financially because basically he lost out on what 70,000, 60,000, something like that. So
Yeah.
yeah. So it's like he more than paid the price. But like for me, Mike, seeing those two, like Shane hasn't had the best record, in obviously, but like seeing Josh get announced, like I just like seeing greatness, no matter what. Like I don't care what
Yeah,
sport it is, I just like seeing the best
listen,
guys out there.
we know the history of Mosconi Cup, so Matchroom putting Shane and Filler in there is a much bigger plus for Team Europe than it is for Team USA, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So they got to feel pretty good about it.
What do you like, Matchroom or the Europeans, or what do you mean?
Team Europe. I mean, Team
Oh,
USA's
yeah.
got to feel great about Shane being on the team as well. Because
Do they though? Do they, Mike? I mean, listen,
yeah,
Shane's
okay.
Shane's my boy, but
I don't care what year you take, what team you take, whatever. You can't come up with a 5-team Team USA and say this is better than a 5-team USA team with Shane. Can't do it.
no, you can't for sure. And I mean, anybody with half a brain could agree with you.
Yeah.
But you always have these conversations of his Mosconi Cup record being brought up year in and year out. Every time, you always end up seeing SVB with the same,
Okay, there's a
what I
couple
mean?
things about that. There's a couple things about that and we've been through this before. We went over all the stats from the last 5 years, and Shane was really no worse than Sky. And everybody looks at Sky as an automatic Team USA, best player on the team thing. So that doesn't wash. Two, listen, if you've seen this movie a couple times and you know what's coming, you react to it different than you did the first time or the second time. The other players on the team got to look past that. They got to find ways to either keep them engaged or they got to find ways for that not to affect them. If
Well, whose
enough,
shoulders does that fall on then, Mike? Because and it kind of gets a
falls
little
on
broad
the
picture
captain.
here.
It falls on the
Yeah.
captain's shoulders to get everybody squared. It falls on his shoulder to keep changed and that type of thing. So,
Yeah.
I noticed him that checked out last year.
No. Well, where was it at?
I mean, he didn't perform great, but nobody did. But I didn't look at him like I did a couple of years ago in Alley Pally when everybody was doing, the gone fishing, routines. So
Yeah.
uh, yeah,
Well, I think like Shane's a realist. Like that's one thing that I really appreciate about Shane, and one of the many reasons why I respect him the way that I do. He'll tell it like it is. Now, obviously, off the record, Shane is a lot better than on the record, Shane. And if you know, you
yeah,
know. And so, but like I think Shane just kind of gets in these valleys where he just hates to fucking lose, and I think that's where it all stems from with Shane. And so, and even if you like even if you watch their dynamic as a team, it's like Shane's always by himself in the sense of like he's got his own routine. He doesn't need anybody babying him in terms of being
yeah, right,
sharp. Doesn't need anybody babying him in terms of work ethic. Doesn't need anybody babying him in terms of like going out there and hitting balls where a lot of these other guys, and I think if you know, they do. They need to kick in the ass. And if you've been around them, whether in preparation or whatever, or if you've heard rumors in terms of work ethic, like where there's smoke, there's typically fire, But
yeah,
Shane gets himself up. Now the Federer conversation in terms of like Shane's comfortability with him is a real deal thing, but like you would, it's tough to say that Federer's hitting on all gears right now going into Mosconi Cup, and so how comfortable then would it be to have like how comfortable is Shane going to be in that aspect going into this year compared to like last year when Federer was world champion and still, he was the ghost last year too, meaning he didn't show up. You know what I mean? Like he disappeared
yeah,
in the Mosconi Cup all over again.
right. Well, yeah. I think Shane being on the team is going to help Federer for one, because in Federer's
Yeah,
mind it'll take a little weight off him. Two, we talk about Shane needing to lose, and I think that part of the reason we see some of the stuff from Shane there is that he does hate to lose, and this is one of those events that I think he feels like he has the least amount of control
sure.
over short races, and depending on other teammates, this is the event that's the biggest crapshoot for him, and he doesn't want a crapshoot. So I understand that
Yep,
part of it.
sure.
And like Nate says, you look at when he was down 10-1 to Meek a couple of years ago, he ended up winning a world championship by not cashing it in, right? Because he had control. It was a long race. He could get rolling.
Well,
He could
Shane
get
doesn't mind shouldering it on his own. Shane does, but because Shane can depend on number one, Shane can depend on himself, But when it comes to the left and to the right, and not being, necessarily the best team guy, or having just being real, having faith in the other guys sit next to you, you know what I mean, for whatever reason. And
yeah,
Shane's not dumb. I mean, he knows the politics and all the bullshit that's gone on over the years. You know what I mean? So, um, but like if it was just him, he would have a lot more faith in it for sure. You know what I mean? Like he would be, you know what, I'll go
and,
put these guys down.
he's not a fan of a race to 5. I know that. So an
Oh, for
alternate break
sure.
race.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
So
yeah.
he can get his mind can get a little bit wobbly just walking out there knowing that I'm playing Josh in a race to 5 and to say it's always gone well. So yeah, we'll see what happens this year. I mean, Sky's bankrolling a lot on the fact that Team Europe has 2 rookies and
Well,
the
let's
Reyes
talk
Cup
about that break.
going quiet. Well, you gotta reach for stuff that you think you can pull some hope and momentum out of, right? So I'm not surprised going there, but it's just one of those narratives to throw out there, which makes it seem like it might be close.
Look, you're never going to know until you know. And even the best guys in the world still have a little rattle when they walk out on that stage. Now, do I expect it to be the same Mosconi Cup stage as years before? No, I don't. I really don't. I don't know what the ticket sales are like, but you know, I'm I'm not thinking it's going to be packed just from like an anticipation or excitement level. Plus, given the fact that like it's a month away and they're pushing ticket sales, whereas years before,
Yeah,
like I mentioned
yeah.
before,
Like
they were
sold
sold
out.
out. They were sold
Yeah,
out the secondary market was booming for tickets this time last year, and the year
Yeah.
before, and the year before that, and this year, you can still get VIP seats, which is just crazy compared to years before. So like something's amiss there in terms of promoter meets event. You know what I mean? But
What do you think it is?
I think they shit the bed. I don't know. I mean, I don't listen. I don't want to. I really don't want to sugarcoat that answer, to be honest with you, Mike. And that answer,
Yeah,
and
no,
I
no,
know,
I get it because I don't think, I don't look. I agree with you. I don't look at this as being one of those things where if ticket sales are down a little bit, it's because U.S. is getting their ass kicked every year and Europeans are losing interest. I don't buy that. I don't buy that because the build up to this year's has been so much weaker than in previous years that it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. I mean, if you wanted to have a lousy turnout, this was the way to do it.
look, you can give credit where it's due, but then you also got to shoulder responsibility when it's there as well.
Yeah,
And so if you're going to go and say, well, it's just uncompetitive, and Team USA there's not a lot to choose from. Guess what? That was the case every year, and every year you're sold out.
right,
And
right.
so if that's not the case this year, then to me, there's no one else to blame other than Emily and Team Matchroom. I don't know how else to go and spin it without without like being honest about it, because there is no PC way about it. I think when it came to the cherry picking and the selection process, along with the fact of going back to back years with player captains, is a failure. And so and I think that like it left a lot of bad taste in fans' mouths, and that was and look at the one who was holding the spoon, you know, is what I would say to that, Mike, because while I think they do a lot of things great and they've been swinging at growth and all these things, I feel like that she's put her ego before listening to the core group of fans, you know. And so I think that's where it's a miss, and that's where I feel like you just thought. And again, hopefully they do sell out. But if it's not, and it is flat on attendance, then they got to go and shoulder that for sure, because
Yeah,
you
yeah. That was
set up
my
the
point.
system.
I don't
Yeah,
think that anybody who says, "Well, attendance is down," and I hope it's not. But if it is, then I hope no one says, "Well, it's because it's so one-sided. People are losing interest," and I don't buy. Uh,
no,
so it would have to be something else. So we'll
I would be
just
more like I if you try to manipulate the story in terms of players and whatever else, then when it comes up flat, that's on you to me, And so now they're not deaf, she's not deaf. I'm sure they see comments, they hear opinions, whatever. Now, whether or not they choose to take that in consideration is a whole different conversation. And I think the writing's on the wall in that aspect. And listen, for better or worse, you want to go and bank on yourself, by all means. You know what I mean? Like I get wanting to do that. But like I said, it's like it's a double-edged sword here, because you can get praised in terms of successes, but then you know what? Like if it's not, that's on you as well, like I mentioned. And so um, I think there's other ways to go and spin it where you would give fans more hope and optimism, or at least it'd be more compelling. Now you might still have the same overall like score line, or similar range, if that makes sense. But if you're going out there and just sending out this same record, rinse and repeat, and just think that like pool fans are going to go and show up and show out for you and still have the same energy and enthusiasm, I think you got another thing coming, to be honest with you. And I think this is the year where you're going to see that, Mike. And I've never in all my years of being a pool fan have felt like that before. Despite the fact that, like, listen, there were years I'm laying 3-1 on the Europeans. You know what I mean? Like, and like, I mean, sincerely, you know what I mean? Like, that's
steal
how
it.
from and fucking robbing them, like just robbing them until you get busted 2 years back to back, and then you're like, okay, pump the brakes a little bit. You know what I mean? But it's like you you had this like blind loyalty when it came to this event from fans, right? Like where we couldn't get enough of it, right? The problem,
Right.
but like you got rid of like the competitors, the fighters, and you made it into more of a show. Even talking with Albin, Mike. I mean, you heard what Albin said the other day.
Yeah, there used to be a lot of contention at this event, which was better. And like I said, the biggest thing to me is that it was always a 12-month news cycle over the last 7, 8, 9 years. And that's what kept the conversation going. That's what kept the interest. That's what kept the I need to be there feelings going on. Now next year you come back to the U.S. and I would, unless they completely ignore it for 12 months next year, I would expect next year to, if it is down a little bit this year in Europe, it would bounce back next year in the U.S. because U.S. fans still love this event and they would get geeked up for it. So, it's we'll wait and see on that.
I hope so, but something just has to give in that aspect, Mike, and so I just the annoying part is that I think it could be a better product, and that's where, like we mentioned, show in and show out, like that, where these, at least for me anyway, like that's where my passion comes from. It's just being able to see like the potential of what it could be, and so now when it comes to like Shane and Filler, listen, we want to see them on the team either way. We want to see greatness and all these things, you know what I mean? And so like that part of it, I'm not going to go and pretend otherwise, but it's because like, listen, they, at least with Josh, like Josh is one of the best players to ever fucking play on that stage, and so
and I expect the European crowd to be in full throat for Josh when Josh is out there. I don't think any fans hold any kind of grudge. The minute he walks out there with a Q in his hand, they're going to be doing their song and they're going to be behind 100%. It's not going to take him too long to get right to swing of things.
Here's like what's crazy about like just this year and their buildup, because you mentioned it being like a 12-month conversation, and there would be years where we would hear who the captain is, come May, right? And they would have all these months, and we would have conversations with them, bring them on the show, right? Talk about them. Who are you looking at? What do you think about this guy, that guy, whatever, right? They announced 2 captains this year in an event where those 2 captains were getting their ass whooped. Like, getting their ass whooped, Mike. Like, whoop worse than the Americans get their ass whooped, okay? And it was after a match where Sky and Shaw win a point, right? I think they won a point that day, or together they won a point. Then they announced them, but it was like 8-1 or 7-2, whatever. It was like so far out of line, and that's when they announced for their biggest event. That's when they announced captaincy for it. Like, in a nutshell, if that doesn't tell you what the year's been like, for the Mosconi Cup, that should tell you all you need to know. And this is where like even as sucker pool fans, we were even excited about the captains, and we still are. Like, we still have passionate debates back and forth, who should be, shouldn't be, whatever. 2 guys got their ass whooped, man, and you're gonna go and announce them during that event? Come on, man. Come on.
And they were teammates, and now you're announcing them as adversaries. It's just
okay. I'm glad you mentioned that, because here's the other like awkward part that you're gonna see in about a month. You're gonna see Emily dolled up, right, with her, and it's gonna be at a press conference where press can barely ask any questions, if any, right? And she's gonna be there going back and forth, trying to stir up controversy, and she's gonna be the one asking all the questions, but like it's her. She's pulling the puppet strings,
Yeah.
And so like that's just, like I said, where if you just opened it up and let it be what it'll be, instead of trying to just control every little part of it, then it doesn't have to be so cringe. It doesn't have to be so, here we go again. It doesn't have to be this like, fuck, same old goddamn story over and over and over again, And on
so
the note
so you don't think asking Josh how did he feel about not being on the team last year is one of the questions that's going to be allowed or asked?
Okay. Now, if I was there, that would be the first. That would be question number one that I want to ask. Right? Emily's gonna do the introductions. I'm gonna be there raising my hand, and that's the question that I want to ask, and that's the question that everybody else wants to hear as well. Like I want to hear Josh's candid answer with Emily sitting center stage as to how he felt for her fucking him out of the spot last year, right? But it'll never come out. It'll never be allowed to be asked. And
Of
so,
course.
but like that would make the press conference must see television now, wouldn't it, Mike? Or am I just crazy here?
No, but I've been in that press conference before, so.
Well, I told this story, and I'm going to tell it again because it's one of my favorite, like, of all time of doing this. So, like, when I finally get invited to a press conference, right, and I'm feeling like, oh man, this is so cool. I'm in a Mosconi Cup press conference, and then we're on a Zoom call because I think it was overseas, right? And there's Panozzo in there, and Mike wanted to ask a question. I don't remember what the question was or what it was about, but it didn't go so well, and it pissed her off, if I remember right, Mike. And Mike dips out like before he even asks like the formal question live during the press conference. Mike says, "You know what? Fuck this," and he just gets on out of here and leaves the Zoom call. And I was just like, and that's when I really realized like what an OG that Mike really is. Like how much just pure thuggery that Mike has in his position as
No,
journalist.
that was the early year where they spent 6 months promoting him as being coming back, and then he got the COVID restriction.
That's
and
right.
He couldn't
Yeah.
play. And I asked about him not, the decision to not allow him to play and to pick Jeremy, and it was basically pawned off as, well, we want to talk about, he's not in the event, so we want to talk about the event. And that's when I just thought, well, you know what? If this isn't a real press conference, I'm not sticking around. So,
But it never is though, Mike. It was the same shit last year with Filler and the Reyes Cup. Am I wrong?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
So,
but it's the press conference. No question like that will be asked about Josh this year, guaranteed.
No.
No. And so,
but they
and the thing is, it's a question everybody wants to know.
Sure.
And it's really, at that point, it would be up to Josh. It would actually be his calls whether he wants to answer it. Because you could ask a question, Josh, say, you know what, I'm not answering that question. Anybody, you could ask any athlete a question. They're absolutely okay. I'm okay with them saying, not going there. Okay. But, don't tell me I can't even ask the question, because it's what everybody wants to know.
It's so like obvious, and that's the part that like you want to pretend like it's not there, but like there's so many situations where they do that like over and over and over again. Like, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to ask that. We're not going to talk about, and that's where like, especially this year, like I got tired of doing that, because there's so many obvious things. And even the last time when we were going to get Emily on, and it was like, and I send a list of topics I want to discuss. And I always like, listen, I don't want to just go into shit like that, but it's a part of it. And it's so obvious where I'll say, hey, listen, we got to talk about this, but then we can talk about positive things too, and, but like, then when all that just gets tossed to the side, it's like, come on, man, really? Like it's so, and this is where like with Shane, to Sean's point in there, like with to what Shane and Josh have done this year, and even Josh for last year, it's like good for them to stand up for themselves. And they said, if I don't want to go play this, I'm not going to go play it.
Yeah.
And so like I got more respect for that this year for sure. And like, listen, there's not very many like dramatic storylines this year. You know what I mean? Like there's not that many. Sean knows me too well. There's not that many like, angles to choose from where like I'm really excited to watch. Like I want to see if Federer shows up. I want to see if Josh is the killer. And I don't care if it's if it's still lopsided. But I want to like that's the part where it's intriguing for me as a pool fan. And so at least we're getting that this year. You know what I mean, Mike?
From the first break, I'll be as like edgy and nervous and excited as I am any year because I want to see how it goes. I want to see how it's, how playing each other. I want to see if they're hating on each other. I want to see if there's animosity, if there's any cringe moments, whatever.
But do you expect that, Mike? Do you expect any of that, like the animosity? That's genuine anyway.
I don't know. I think they're going to have to realize sooner or later part of the mindset. It's not a show. It's not animosity for it's you got a game face on and play if you expect to win. And that game face doesn't include, sitting back looking at your phone. It doesn't include, hanging with the other team, hugging it out, whatever. It's I want to drill you every time.
I want to stop you right there because you mentioned the phone, right? And that was a big deal. Yep. Last year during Reyes Cup, all the Europeans, every single one of them, checked out and were on their phones. Yeah. If you and you may not
have the best impersonation of Team USA.
Yeah. Right when they finally got bullied back a little bit too, mind you. Yeah. But going into this year, right? We talked about guys being on their phone. The captain, Sky, was on his phone, took it out there on the stage. Johan talked about it. And it's like, that's from the leader, right, of Team USA. And you mentioned like keeping Shane engaged and all these things and how that responsibility is going to fall on him. But let me ask you this, Mike, because we still don't know who the fifth selection is. And obviously we know all five guys now for Team Europe, even though they haven't announced David. They did announce David, however you want to go and take that. But David's the fifth guy, right? Now, with Team USA, Sky's been on the record on social media and otherwise saying, last year I pulled all the guys. They chose Billy. That's why I went with Billy. So he kind of had an out, right? Or at least that's what he went on the record saying for last year. Now, this year, the same thing. I've seen online where he's saying, as long as I'm captain, I'm going to pull all the guys. But like, is that what a captain or a leader should do, Mike? Or am I just crazy here? Because
well, yeah, I mean, I don't mind, but I don't want anybody to say the vote was 3-2. I want a captain to say, I polled all the guys, I took all their information in, I mixed it in with my information, and I came out with my own decision, and I'll own up to my own decision. That's the way you do it, right? You don't have to be a dictator. You don't have to demand that you do certain things. I don't mind going to other players and saying, give me some input here. Give me what you guys think. But it's still me to take all that information and make a decision based off of that, blend it in with what I feel is the best for the team, and then you make your deal with it. So yeah, it's not pawning it off on others. There's nothing wrong with including other people in conversation, but the decision should be obvious as yours.
I mean, the buck has to stop with him,
Yeah, of course.
Like that's where, and by the way, at least the way that I took it, right? The way that I took it is, it is in a sense kind of like pawning it off and saying, well, it gives them kind of an out where it's just like, well, hey, listen, it wasn't me picking my boy, right? It was the whole team was the one that I asked, and they said it. But like at the end of the day, he's picking up an extra $20,000 to be the bad guy. And when you're a captain, sometimes you got to go and be the bad guy, right? You're going to take the worst of it and you're going to take the best of it, right? That's part of leadership 101, right? Johan took a bath with American fan social media for the first, year and a half at least, or the first 2 years until the second Mosconi Cup where they ended up winning. But before then, it was always, we don't need a European being a captain and blah, blah, blah. And now look at the way that the tide's changed in terms of getting more respect and things like that, Mike, but sometimes like if you're going to take on that role, whether financially or getting it in the locker room, it's like you gotta own that, Mike, and you gotta sometimes have unpopular opinions or take the one thing about Johan years ago, and it's ironic because Tyler gets announced today, but back when Johan got announced that first year, there was a lot of controversy with Opie being announced on that team because a lot of people thought that he had no business being on that team at that time, Now this year now he's more of a staple of the team, But it's like sometimes you gotta be a little bad cop sometimes too, Mike. You know, I
Yeah,
mean, it
sure.
sucks, like it does, but I think that's just and especially like, and I feel like you can get away with it more with not having success, right? Because that to me is the out, Mike. Hey, listen, guys, I went with y'all's road before. It didn't fucking work out. Now I'm doing it my way. We gave it a shot that way. I'm going my way this time. You know, and I think that's how you can spin it to where it can be justified a little bit, you know. But on that note, Mike, given the fact we don't know who the fifth player is for Team USA, we expect to be between Billy, or at least I expect to be between Billy and Lucas. What are your thoughts as far as where to lead to? I know you mentioned before Billy. You still feel that way, and why?
Yeah, well, I still feel that it would be Billy because, basically going from what Sky has said about Team Europe, that their uh,
The rookies.
weakness this year, or that there's a little bit of a better chance for Team USA because they've got two rookies, right? So you don't, if that's the way you really feel, then to me that mind is set on having a veteran team to counteract rookies, to take advantage of those rookies. You don't do that by having Lucas play Moritz. Okay, that's not an even trade of trying to take advantage of the other team's rookie. So to me, the just the logic of it, of his making that statement, which he made about Team Europe having these rookies and that being a little bit of a chink in their armor, or potential both of them can play well. They're not used to that arena. I don't see him taking someone who has never been in that arena before. That to me would be counter, intuitive to what he talked about as being important.
By that philosophy, yeah, you're right. You know, at
Yeah,
least that's the way
I mean that's
that's the way that I would take that statement as well. You know,
exactly.
but when I
Yeah. Now, do I think it's the right answer or not? I don't know. I mean,
well, do you?
you know, I don't know. I don't know it's. Um, how does it impact the team? How does it, who really gives you a better chance? Has Lucas shown against big competition that he can handle that, a big stage, a big player? Now, Billy, to his credit, he performed some last year in Mosconi Cup. I won a doubles match with Tyler. I think he won a singles match. So he can get you a point or two. But I think that we talked about with Billy is, and this is up to Sky, is it needs to be a more dialed in, serious, 100% focused team for them to have.
Do you think that Sky can make that happen?
I think he can. I mean, I think he understands what the difference between that is and what he had last year. I think he's got to understand. All he has to do is look at last year's, video and say, it was part team, part clown act, and that's not going to cut it.
But do you
So
really
we
think
got to
that
go
he
back.
feels that way though?
All Sky has to do is go back to 2018 and 2019 and look at those teams and look at teams which are one player different and say, okay, what's the difference between this team from 2018 and 2019 and this team that we had in 2024? What's the difference? Same players. What's the difference? How you approach the matches, how you approached every day, how you approached being a team, how you practiced, what the rules were. That's all he's got to do is look at the difference between those two, and he'll see what kind of change he's got to make. Now, is it automatically going to work? No, obviously it could blow up in his face too, but you don't do the same thing you did
But
last year and expect to get the result.
do you think that the guy who took out his cell phone out there while they're getting their ass whooped there in Manila, right, and was having a laugh fest with Federer on the center stage, do you think he's the same guy to go and have that same like
Well, let's
attitude
see.
going into the UK this year?
He had
Because
his
I'm not
phone
so
out,
sure.
and he had his phone out, and he had his a great time with Federer, laughing and joking, getting his ass kicked by Asia. Last year, he had a great time. 2 years ago in London, he had a great time with Federer, calling for a couple of beers while they were getting their ass kicked. Guys got to understand by this point that that's not making a difference. So change it up.
Everybody has their strengths, and if you listen to some of like the social media stuff from the players going into like the Reyes Cup in particular, right? Like they mentioned, oh, well, in the group chat, Jason's the guy to make a joke and blah, blah. Like everyone's got a good role, at least some guys have a good role, right? Especially like the alphas, right? Because Jason's an alpha. Sky would be an alpha to some extent as well, but it's like, if you aren't good in that role and then you don't address it or change anything, right? Then you can't expect it to be any different. But at the same time, like if you're aware of the fact that you're not good in that role, then you have to either do something to change it, or you shouldn't be the one to be responsible to make that call in the first place. Because
I'll give him this year to see, because I think that Sky does have some leadership in him. I think he's got to learn where, when it goes on, when it goes off, how to dial things in, how to get guys focused, how different guys do different things. He's got to learn how to do that. The same token, you and I are both hoping this is the last year he's captain anyways, because we don't want playing captains. So hopefully next year what he was, which was, he'll have riding his ass going in there, making sure that he's dialed in as a player, and that's all he's got to worry about. So, but this year he's the captain. So he's got to take a different approach than he has in the past, and we'll see whether that makes any difference. If it's the same rodeo that we watched last year, then I think, I think he'd be the captain next year regardless, because Matchroom would be tired of seeing the same show.
To me, like, he embodies everything that I want out of the co-captain. He's very good at being the good cop. He's very good at keeping guys easy and gelled and loose, but then you still got to have that like disciplinarian too. You know what I mean? And I don't think that's his strong suit, is what I would say, or at least history would say that that's not where he would thrive.
Yeah, I just think he has the temperament where it could become his strong suit if he wanted to.
I hope so. Yeah. I mean, I hope it does. It's so hard when you're friends with guys, right, Mike? Because like it's easy to like tiptoe, and you don't want to piss them off because they're your friend, and you don't want to like upset them or talk shit to them or whatever. Like, and so I understand that, but like if you're in that position, that comes with the territory sometimes. You know what I mean? Of being the bad guy, and so, and I think this year in particular, like they need more of that, because the way that it was very carefree before was, one, it was a little embarrassing because you weren't competitive. And two, it just didn't work, plain and simple. Like the one thing, listen, you can say whatever you want about Double J and the way that he captained the team and this and that. But when it came to like ownership and responsibilities, and even whenever like we would ask him after the fact and we were trying to like pull positives during conversations, like he would always acknowledge, but then he would also say, but you know what? Like you only chalk it up one way, either with a win or with a loss. And that was one thing that I really enjoyed about leadership, because that's, to me, Mike, that's what a leader is, for better or worse. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so we talked about like the World Series, right? Last week, 'cause it was a great one. But like one of the things that I took away from watching that was, it was the interview with Mookie Betts before, I think it was before game 6, or maybe after game 5, when they were talking about like his struggles at the plate, right? Like, and he's known to be a clutch hitter, but during that series, he was not. And and one thing that I really took from it was whenever he mentioned like, hey man, I was terrible. I've been terrible. Like there's no other way to cut it up. Like I have not delivered. That's leadership to me, Mike. Like that is, and then to his credit, he followed that up with some good hitting the following game, and so, which was awesome. And of course they stole it in game 7. But like, my point is that when you have failures or you have successes, like you have to be aware of both. You know what I mean? And I feel like, and I don't know if it's just the culture or the guys or whatever, but it's like, nobody wants to hurt anybody's feelings. Nobody wants to ruffle any feathers.
you can be aware of your failures, but you got to work at changing them, right? I mean, that's what Mookie Betts did.
Sure,
Just,
sure, yeah. It goes hand in
so,
hand, right? You would think. Yeah, I mean, it's that that's the part where I want to see more of, like, because if your standard is we have to win, then goddamn it, I want to see you mad whenever you don't. I want to see you fired up whenever you don't. And I'm not saying just have like this whole like negative outlook, but like acknowledge the fact that hey, it does not work, and I'm taking an active, conscious decision this year to do things differently to where it can work. Now
it's
on the
got
note
to be,
of
different.
yeah,
It's got to be different this year, and it's got to be really obvious that it's
yeah,
different.
and like listen, this year in regards to Billy and Lucas, like I mentioned the other day, and I agree with you. Like I'm taking Billy, and if I'm Sky, I'm owning it for better or worse. Like fans' impression of your decision last year, it is what it is. But this year, to me anyway, the only options are Lucas and Billy because they were the ones who were traveling, and so I think that's where it boils down to. Now, if you've already gone on the record saying that, hey, I polled everybody and everybody picked Billy last year, common sense to me anyway would say that more than likely there's not anybody that can make a case saying I'm picking Lucas this year over Billy based off of play or performance or whatever, because Lucas has not outshined him in that aspect. So like I would favor experience, you know? Now the other part of like getting them dialed in and getting them, focused and channeling his energy and all these things, like you're gonna have to figure that out. And that is something you're gonna have to figure out as a captain. But when it comes to like just balls and strikes, listen, Lucas ain't done no better than Billy this year, Mike. I cannot in a million, I cannot like however you try to justify things or spin things in my head, make a case to where one, I would pick Lucas over Billy. But two, how can you expect if you're passing the ownership onto the team? I don't see how in any way you can say those other four guys are going to go and pick Lucas over Billy this year. Not to me anyway. So
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you can make an argument. I think you could, if he wanted to, he could make an argument for Lucas. Sure, he could.
I think it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out, and especially I'm going to be curious to see how the fans react to it either way. Because there's like Sky's always been like the good guy with fans. You know what I mean? But you can tell that there's like people are very aware of that whole buddy buddy thing from last year, and there's a lot of like, not having it this year, at least from what I've seen on social media. You know what I mean? And so, um, but like I said, if it were me, as unpopular as they may be with some fans or whatever, I'm picking Billy because, like I said, Lucas, I haven't seen it, Mike. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah,
um,
no, I get that part of it. Yeah.
anyhow, Mike, what else are you looking forward to for the Mosconi Cup? We mentioned Josh to start the show. We mentioned Shane already. Tyler got announced today. We got four guys in on each team, which is great, but we're still worried about that last one.
Who are we missing? We missed someone from Team Europe.
No, well, I mean, what Jenny Ann says, why is Oscar's name not mentioned? I want to ask you that, Mike. What is your take on that?
I think visibility in that, and drive to get on the team, which I think he would admit he didn't take all the shots this year because he's been through the ringer before with trying to get on the team, and he was focusing more on family and his pool room this year and all that stuff. That's fine, but I'm not going too deep into that. So I think I don't know that I could pick him over Bill based on this year, anyways. Certainly not by play this year, and not by Mosconi Cup performance if you're looking historically. So yeah, I don't. To me, he's not in the mix. Nothing against Oscar. I love Oscar, but to me, he's not in the mix.
Yeah, I mean, look, everybody knows how close I am with him, and he's he's one of my best friends in life, you know. And so, probably in a day that goes by where he ain't sending me a reel or something, just cutting up, you know what I mean? And but um, I don't think that he's in the mix because what, like to your point, he's just tired of their bullshit, and he knows that that buddy buddy system and him getting the short end of the stick time after time after time, you know. And that's the reason why he didn't want to travel again this year, because it didn't matter if he was top five, because they were going to fuck him either way, you know. And it's hard to get into the top three because he knows what Federer is and he knows what Shane is, you know. So basically, and he knew that with Sky not having an incentive to qualify, that he was probably going to be the fourth or fifth guy, but he was always going to be an automatic because he's captain.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that was the reason why, and especially after what he went through last year. And like, listen, y'all only know like the tip of the fucking iceberg when it comes to what he went through last year. And I'm not going to put all his business out there like that, but like, you know, it's the reason why the reason why I don't put him in the mix as far as this conversation right now is because, you know, he only played a limited amount this year. Now, as far as him out playing Billy or whatever, look, his U.S. Open run was really the only sample size you can go and ask for, and he went final 16 in the U.S. Open, I think it was. So, um, you know, whatever you want to pull from there. But if you're going to go and minimize that, you can go look at last year's U.S. Open and see what kind of wins he's had. You can also go back and look over the last 2 years and see his quality of victories that he's had, like in terms of quality opponents that he's beaten over the last 2 years. And to me, you can't compare. You know, it's, and if you were just to go look at like who he's beaten, but it don't matter who you beaten if you're not best friends with the guy who's making the decisions. And I'm just gonna say it like that, you know. And so him not traveling was his choice. That's the only reason why I don't include him part of the conversation leading into it, because realistically, I don't think I don't think he's on the plate for those guys or for Sky to be able to pick. I don't think Sky's taking him into consideration. He didn't he it was very quick to make him be the first guy out last year, and it's going to be real easy for the guy to go and do the same thing, in my opinion. So now I think it's shitty. And to Oscar's credit, I talked to him. I said, "Hey, listen, once they announce the teams, would you like to come on and talk about it?" He said, "Sure," you know. And so I'm sure at some point we are going to have him on, which is great. And I think like now he's in a better space in terms of like, look, he doesn't need that validation of saying like I'm a top 5 American from guys who don't want to give him any respect, you know. Like it's and I love that about him because it's more freeing for him, like from a health standpoint or mentally or whatever. You know, he's got a
Yeah.
lot of great things going for him. You know, he's got a beautiful family, a great business. He can pick and choose where he wants to go in life whenever he wants to go. You know, and that like having that kind of freedom is to be awed and admired. But he's still a competitor and has a chip on his shoulder. And I think like if it was just if he was if he was, you know, in his mid-20s again and, you know, had an unlimited bankroll to go and travel, he'd be out there fucking grinding because he wants to go and prove everybody wrong, you know, and that's the kind of person he is. But I think he is tired of getting fucked over by that same group of people over and over and over again. And so that's just the reality of it. And that's why, like, when I seen, and I mentioned this the last time we did a show, like when I seen, you know, Billy mentioning being in top 5 and this and that, and I'm like, man, it didn't matter top 5 last year. So I don't understand why you make an argument for it this year. Like that's supposed to give you some kind of validation for the year because
Right.
you completely discredited the guy who was top 5 last year. So, but that's Jenny Ann, to your question. That's the only reason why. Do I think he should be on the team? 150 fucking percent. I think he should be on the team, you know. But I already know how things are, and that's the only reason why I don't include him part of the conversation. That's just my honest, like, not giving a fuck anymore response to that, you know. And so, but look, it seems like, Mike, given the way that seeing Shane get announced, there's more excitement. Seeing Filler get announced, there's more excitement. I'm hoping that that translates into people being out there, um, come a month from now. But this is also like we haven't been able to get Emily on the show to be able to ask her like when is the deadline for captains? When is the deadline for last pick? When is the deadline for this? Like she'll go on every like non-pool talk show or guys who want to give her like cupcake questions, you know what I mean? But like she won't come on and answer any tough ones. So that's the reason why I'm sure the pick is in. I'm sure they know. They're just we'll see in a couple of days, I guess, is all I can guess.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm assuming the pick is in, but wouldn't surprise me if it isn't. I mean, I could imagine Sky wait until the very last second until they put it to make the decision. But hopefully, since they've gone ahead and announced Filler and they've announced Shane, whatever, to kind of run out, do all that, and over a 2 or 3 day period, and then wait another week to decide number 10. So I would imagine that by Monday we'll know.
Well, I think like the ones who would potentially get people in the stands were the two guys they announced today and yesterday, in Josh and Shane. Because like those are the ones that fans really want to see. Like diehard pool fans who are going to be paying however much money to get a ticket. Those are the ones that fans want to go and see. And like even if that it's still out of line in terms of a score line, I'll be tuning in to go watch those two. Because I just, like I said, I love watching greatness. I love watching guys. I love watching great players. Now, sometimes they're going to hit a home run. Sometimes they're going to go and fall. Sometimes they're going to go and disappear. But I at least want to see, like, I want to see Team Europe versus, I want to see Team Europe. I don't want to see Team Matchroom like we've seen over the last couple of years. You know what I mean? So, but like on rookie notes, Mike, we talked about this the other day. Those two boys that are rookies for Team Europe are playing pretty sporty right now. So
yeah, they are. They are. I'm anxious to see. I'm curious to see how Pius does. I think Moritz. He's got the mindset. He's got the demeanor. He's got the. I think that he's going to be just fine. And Pius is a great player. We both.
He's the one I'm a little concerned about, Mike, is Pius. He's the one that I'm a little
concerned. I'm just curious to see how he handles it. So we'll see. I mean, he could go out there and be AJ Manis. Our other favorite rookie of the
What's like can we do some prop bets this year? And one of them that I want to do this year is who's Emily going to take more selfies with this year? Like if you were gonna go and rank them, right, like 1 to 10, you know what I mean? And where would Pius rank on that? Matter of fact, Mike, and we're gonna get him on the show I think on Monday, so I'm gonna ask him where he thinks he might be on that list. You know what I mean?
I don't think Pius is concerned one way or another.
No, he's not.
I think the selfie meter will be more on fans at Mosconi Cup than on players.
But I love when guys like that just go and like really turn the system on its head, And those two guys, and those two guys went and did it, Mike. You know what I mean? Like, and that was the only way that they were gonna go and get on that team, and that's why I just like fucking love that,
This year they closed the deal. The last couple of years there's been rookies who've been up there, and by the end of the year they'd kind of found a way to fade. But these two just these two just stepped up in crunch time, late part of the year, and got their business done. So kudos to both of them. They deserve to be there. I hope they have a ton of fun.
Yeah.
I hope they play well. So I hope they enjoy the experience. What's with Shane with the WPA thing? All of a sudden he's on the WPA way.
Sean may have been hitting the sauce a little too early in the afternoon out there in California. I don't know. No, look, I think that like there's going to be some pressure, obviously, but there's going to be some like really positive moments for those guys, and seeing like seeing Pius's post yesterday was the coolest part for me because he's like, I made it. Like, and you
Yeah.
can, and I don't know about you, but like, I'll read stuff like that, Mike, and I'm like, you can feel their passion
Yeah, yeah.
and enthusiasm about it, and what it meant to him. Like, that's the part that I just love, you know, um, because it's like they wanted it, man, and there wasn't any cupcakes or easy roads to go and get there for them, and so like Moritz, I can see being a staple for years to come. Now, Pius, he's still going to have to work a little bit harder, but Moritz has been knocking on the door, like, and he's been around come October at least, like being close in the fringe. You know what I mean? So he can be like of that next generation of European stars. To start getting some, more favorable, like getting more of their favor, I guess I should say. You know what I mean? So, but it's all about what you go and do out there. Now, let me ask you this, Mike, and we're gonna have plenty of shows, and then we'll get out of here. We're gonna have plenty of shows. Like once we talk about strategy and all these things, I'm gonna try to do a show with Pancake too, talking about betting and all kinds of stuff. But I want to ask you this, Mike: if you are Sky, what's the strategy you're going into as far as like where you're putting guys at the beginning, like considering the fact that you're knowing who you're going to be up against?
I hadn't really thought that through. I don't know what I don't know if they're going to use the same format that they used for Wiz in terms of the matches. But yeah, I'd have to think that through. Whether you you have to try to guess what Jason's going to do and when he's going to put the rookies out there, whether he's going to put one of them out there in singles on the first day, whether he's going to package them both in doubles with other people, whether you're going to put them together in doubles. Kind of guessing game there and see if you can get a couple of matchups where they're in your favor because you're the underdog going in, pretty much 1 through 5. So, you've got to find.
Well, you can
those
imagine
spots.
we're going to see like you can have Moritz and Fiddler because they got chemistry, right? And obviously won a World Cup pool together. So you can imagine that's going to be a doubles mix that we're going to see at some point, right? Jason and Fran, you're going to see it, I'm assuming too. Plus the big
That first day or so, that first day, is going to be your opportunity to, to get a little bit of a lead or to be, 3-2 after the first day or whatever it's going to be. Because then you can change your strategy up a little bit the next couple of days going forward. So you just don't want to dig yourself a big first day. So that to me is what they're going to have to try to. That's why they're going to have to try to guess what they think Jason's going to do on the first day with his lineup.
Look, I want to dive into this like really, really in depth. You know what I mean? And I guess we can just go off of like whenever we do that show, we can go off of like the Reyes Cup template. Because I'm assuming it's going to be pretty close to it, if not the exact same.
Yeah, if it is, then all 5. Then you have a team match on the first day, and then all 5 players have to play the first day. So, the singles guy can't play either doubles match and vice versa. So, where do you think they're going to go with that? And then you have to just kind of figure out where your best matchups are for that.
I tell you what, like if I am Sky in that spot, like I'm throwing all previous years' logic out the door, and I'm going real top heavy, and because I can't afford to go and lose this on day 1 or day 1.5. I'm going Federer and Shane in those like hard and heavy those first couple days as much as I can, and then just kind of hope that we're at least in it or got a good lead, because you cannot afford to have those 2 guys on the back end with facing a big deficit, because historically they haven't shown up in that spot, so but anyhow, we'll have more stuff coming up in the next are you going to be around next week? I don't even know because I'm just having you on the show without even asking you.
Yeah, I my alerts on, so the minute they will have a show.
Well, okay, I'm holding that because that if it gets announced tomorrow, I'm gonna be texting you. You know what I mean? So,
Okay.
all right, we'll have more shows coming up. like I said, I'm working on getting. I mentioned on the page. I'm trying to get Arsini on. He's playing a tournament out there in Jacksonville. We've been going back and forth a little bit. Working to get Pius on Monday, and then who else, Mike? I'm gonna do as soon as all the teams are announced. I want to get
Yeah.
Laley back in as well. Jr. as well. I think he was coming back from Japan, so but I'm hoping to have him on from Marboys as well. Trying to get Pancake on. So we're gonna talk some gambling because I'm gonna get him to. He loves betting on Team USA, and I need a little bit of European money for these girls. You know, they get a little expensive. So,
Christmas. Man.
fuck, this whole year has just gone by so quick. It's so unreal, dude. You know, like this whole year is just flown on by. I will not. We will not get anyone uh from Matrimon, I guess. You know, so I'm not reaching out and wasting my time. So
You ask, or you just
no,
gonna
I
write
haven't
that up?
asked. I haven't. I listen. I have not asked because I get tired of wasting my time. You know, and more importantly, at this point, I wouldn't even want to do it unless we can really like get into the brass tacks of it all. You know, and I just don't see that happening. So I don't. It's not even worth. It's not even worth taking a swing to me. You know. So plus, look, listen. I've been enjoying doing these shows lately, Mike. Like I've been really enjoying doing these shows lately. So yeah, I don't know, man. It's just been it's been a different year, but you know, there's still a lot of positives and a lot of things to look forward to. So next week also I'm going to meet up with Vincent from the Pro Bird Series, so we're going to catch up with him, look at the event going on in Jacksonville as well. What else we got going on, Mike? The International's coming up. Was it next week?
Internationals coming up. Yeah.
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 So
Internationals coming up in a week. So Hall of Fame banquet.
man,
Tickets.
oh yeah, we got to talk about that. How can guys get their tickets, Mike, for the Hall of Fame banquet?
Go to usbma.com.
Okay, I'll post it on the page so that way you guys can go and take a look at it. Carlos getting
Seattle should be a great night. It's always a great night. It'll be fun.
Yeah, you guys have to go check that out. A real legend. So I'm excited to go and see what he says for his speech, especially like with just like the country and family side of him. You know what I mean? I think we're gonna get some real good stuff out of Carlo this year. So
those acceptance speeches are always great because people come with stuff that you just weren't expecting.
Hey, Mike, what do you have like 5 more minutes, 2 more minutes? I got one more thing I wanted to ask about. Okay, like 2 more minutes.
Okay.
I posted yesterday on Windows Open like the 3 versus 3, and it was like really in jest. You know what I mean? But like, let me ask you this: if you just saw, Sky, Federer, and Shane versus 3 Europeans, right? You would think it's pretty close, wouldn't you? Like, even if it was Shaw, Filler, and David, right? Wouldn't you think like you would bet, even your nitty ass would bet on Team USA at that point, wouldn't you?
I don't know if I bet on Team USA, but it would, on paper it would look like a close. Yeah, it's the same. Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting conversation. You still got to favor Team Europe because traditionally in these events, those three guys have gone head to head most of the time, anyways.
Yeah.
And the U.S. hasn't gone too well in those head to heads. They've usually been able to line up the singles where they were going. Josh against Shane, Josh against Sky, Jason against Federer, whatever. It hasn't worked out all that great. So, would that change if it was just those three and everything depended on them? No, but it certainly would be more interesting.
Call me crazy, but I might bet on Team USA then, Mike. Honestly, with those three, yeah, I really would. Now in Mosconi Cup, I'm not betting on Team USA, but with those three, I would probably bet on Team USA. So, anyhow,
what makes them different in the 3-on-3 than in Mosconi Cup? If you look at the records of Shane and Federer over a couple of Mosconi Cups, what makes you think that going head to head in a 3-on-3 would be different if it was race to five?
Well, okay, so I would say the Europeans are still going to be favored in terms of the breaking for sure, but for me, it's just more mental because I've seen the Europeans how they, and especially Jason, play whenever he's not stealing right now. And Jason can be a bully on the table, but you ain't gonna bully Federer and you're not gonna bully Shane when it's just them two or them three, And so you're not. You can go and pounce on weaker, like talented players than you, right, or weaker guys in that arena than you, but you're not going to against those three guys because they can bully as well, you know. And I also feel like that if the confidence for Federer and Shane, knowing that it's just them two or them three next to each other, would make them feel more like it's closer in terms of like it being just them because it's a similar skill set type player, where I think to some extent there's not a lot of faith in your 4 and 5 guys at times. You know what I mean? So
Well, I agree, and I understand what you're saying. That's my biggest, hope for like the Mosconi Cup is to see a confident
yeah,
Federer and Shane
yes,
right at the gate. Okay,
yep.
because that if they're playing on their toes and not on their heels, then
Then it's
the
fun.
whole team dynamic. Then it's fun.
Yeah.
Then it's going to be good. So what I really hope more than anything is that those two guys come out firing and confident, and then let's roll the dice from there.
If that happens, then it'll be great because then Sky can be the number 3 and just be a little free, and then your fourth guy is great because Tyler breaks the balls really well in this format. So that's a serious edge for that team in terms of USA. But it's like when they had the pressure of needing to step up, then it's a whole different ball game. Darren says,
Yeah.
"Word for USA, all out of form going into it." Well, listen, we're going to talk about that and a lot more, Daz. Appreciate you, Mike, for coming on the show.
Yep.
Appreciate all you guys for hanging out. Hopefully, we didn't piss too many people off. We'll see all y'all maybe tomorrow. If not, we'll see you for sure next week. So enjoy your Friday. We'll see all you later.